2023 is coming to a close, and it's time we look back and take stock of the year that was in entertainment. We all realize that there are some theatrical releases in the offering still to come, like Aquaman 2, Dune Part 2, Wonka, The Iron Claw, one that I'm looking very forward to seeing very much. But I think we have enough evidence to study 2023 and see exactly where we are and where we may be going. A year when we got movies such as Cocaine Bear and Saw 10 was not a stellar time for movies or the studios that produced them, but there were some bright spots. So let's start with Warner Bros. And how it may be the ultimate winner by putting out a movie that people wanted and staying out of the fray of politics and gender identity extremism. 2023 will be known as the year of Barbie. The movie made more money than any other, $1.45 billion to be exact, and it showed others that yes, you can have a social message in a film and be entertaining and make money all at the same time. It just takes talented writers, a talented director, and a cast that can pull off the material and stay relatable to general audiences. Now, this is nothing new. Until 2020, this is exactly what most major studios were doing. And then the progressive SJW mind virus infected Hollywood, along with a touch of Trump derangement syndrome, and voila, you get the majority of what we'll be covering in this video. But I digress. There are still some golden nuggets to be dug out of 2023, and I like to start with the positivity before having to face the harsh reality of where American entertainment currently is. If 2023 was the year of Barbie, it was also the year for Christopher Nolan to prove once again that he is the best director of the past 15 years to come along. His biographic epic Oppenheimer brought in just under $1 billion, and it did the same week that Barbie was released. And though if there's a just God in the entertainment universe, Oppenheimer will win the awards, but probably not. Was there a better performance than Cillian Murphy or Robert Downey Jr. in 2023? No. Was there a better film in 2023 than Oppenheimer? No, but let's face it, the Academy usually only gets 50% of the things right, so half the time they get it wrong, and now with these new DEI rules in place, Oppenheimer may not even qualify, may not even meet the diversity threshold to be an Oscar contender. Super Mario Bros. Proved that when you pay attention to the source material and to what fans want and are actually asking for, we show up. Grossing over $1 billion worldwide, this animated homage to one of the most beloved video games in the history of video games angered some by just being itself, not trying to be anything it's not. With a slew of video game movies and streaming offerings on the horizon, producers and directors would do well to take note of the formula Super Mario Bros. Sketched out, and I'm looking at you, Tomb Raider, a series that just hired the writers of The Marvels to pair with Phoebe Waller-Bridge to craft what is the ultimately going to be a steaming pile of shit. Now, Disney and Marvel had one bright spot, but one that comes with a stain of reality. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 closed out a trilogy that no one gave a chance to when the first Guardians of the Galaxy came out. However, James Gunn did return with the original lineup to deliver a satisfying conclusion. Not the best of the three films, but a good film with a heart and respect for the fan base, and one that made almost $900 million. Now, that is usually a typical return for a Marvel movie, but not in 2023. It was an outlier. The stinger here is that James Gunn has been lured away by Warner Bros. To helm the rebooted DC universe. It may have gotten off to a rocky start, he may have fired Henry Cavill, he may have shut down Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but it's his universe now, and we'll all have to wait and see how it all comes out. The last big winner we have is Columbia's animated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's hard to fuck up Spider-Man, although many have tried. In a year when race and gender swapping replaced creativity and originality in favor of social engineering, this film displayed the right way to introduce diversity into an already established intellectual property. Because Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales. What does that mean for the future of the web slinger? That's tough to say. Look, Sony's banking on 2024's Madam Web and the in-production now Venom 3 to resuscitate their own failed comic book universe. Does that mean Miles Morales will be taking over from Peter Parker? It's a good bet that he probably will, and it's a good bet it'll make money. Not just the kind of money that we think, not No Way Home money from 2021 or 2022, but it'll make money. After these films, there's not much else. Everything else is either made a tiny profit or just barely broke even. Well, let's face it, it's just not worth talking about in the first place. It's kind of sad, yes, but let's get to the heart of the matter. What 2023 is really about, the beginning of the end of Hollywood's profitability. And there's no better place to start than with Disney and Marvel and Pixar and Lucasfilm. Pixar broke even with Elemental, a film with about a $200 million budget. Yes, it may have made a couple of bucks profit in the end, but the standard for Pixar films is way higher than just squeaking by, and John Lasseter must still be laughing wherever he is. Now, Disney released the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, race swapped and all, and it did not turn a profit. Despite the best efforts to call us racist for complaining, it still did not shame us or the Chinese market into seeing the movie. And I mean, really, it was a really hard thing to resist. After all, who could resist Aquafina rapping?
I remember. Well, ever since the what's-his-name, the guy with the hair in the shirt.
The reimagined Haunted Mansion, a film based on an unsuccessful Eddie Murphy vehicle from the 90s based on a legacy ride at Walt Disney World, failed in every way. A movie with a $150 million budget needed to make $500 million to break even. It only made 117. Its biggest failure was not the money, though. Disney, in the wake of dropping Johnny Depp because he's a victim of domestic violence, was praying for the Haunted Mansion to become the next Pirates of the Caribbean, a massively popular, massively profitable franchise. Disney got so desperate that they had plans to reboot the pirate franchise with an all-female cast, until someone close to Bobiger remembered Ghostbusters 2016, and everybody came back to reality. The decline of Marvel started in earnest in 2023. After a disappointing 2022, Disney and Marvel decided to release Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, with the new big baddie Kang, played by Jonathan Majors, center stage. This movie was a mess. The CGI was terrible. The narrative had Ant-Man in the background, yielding to his daughter Cassie, who's an insufferable SJ warrior, and Janet Van Dyne, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. The story makes no sense. It is hilariously bad visually, and it is filled with anti-capitalist and anti-patriarchal messaging. It was a box office flop, not a huge flop, but a flop. In the meantime, Lucasfilm, headed by Kathleen Kennedy, released Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, every other male character in the Marvel Universe had already been emasculated by Disney. So it was Indiana Jones' turn, and boy, they really killed this character forever. The movie stars Phoebe Waller-Bridge, a notoriously activist writer and actor, not Harrison Ford. He's basically her bitch throughout the whole film. Yes, the first 20 minutes of D.H. Indy was good, and I could watch 2 hours of that, no problem, be happy, but that's not the rest of the movie. Now, the original plans for the movie leaked, where Indy is erased from history, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge becomes Indiana Jones, replacing him in every adventure and doing it better than he ever could. But this leak outraged fans, and Disney panicked, so extensive reshoots occurred, and we got the Indy ending that we got. And it sucked too, only because of Phoebe Waller-Bridge did Indiana Jones finally find happiness and fulfillment. Not his own efforts or adventures or his sacrifices that he made throughout his entire lifetime. No, we couldn't have that. So what did fans do? We stayed away. The movie lost hundreds of millions of dollars for Lucasfilm and Disney, but they succeeded at killing one of the most beloved franchises in history. This movie made Kingdom of the Crystal Skull look like Temple of Doom. That kind of failure takes serious effort and planning. But Kevin Feige, not to be outdone by Kathleen Kennedy, released the most important movie in the MCU franchise since Endgame, according to him. That's right, The Marvels premiered and immediately made history. The worst performing movie at the box office, the worst reviewed by critics and audiences, the worst attended by ticket sale numbers, the most money lost by an MCU film. The list goes on and on. Basically, The Marvels is a historically poor movie, a movie that'll become infamous for just how bad it was and how much money it lost. But again, it's not the movie's fault. According to Nia DaCosta, it was men, toxic YouTubers, racists and bigots and homophobes, violent men that tanked this film centered on female empowerment. She just forgot one thing. Women didn't come to see this movie either. In reality, angry black woman Nia DaCosta, who blamed evil white men for her failure, forgot to blame the actual audience that this movie was made for, women. And after all, it's not her fault that she's shitty at her job. It's not her fault that she bailed on her own movie during post-production. It's not her fault that the original movie she shot was so bad Disney asked for extensive reshoots. It's not her fault that the movie was so poorly written, made absolutely no sense, and made a joke out of the entire genre without intending to be funny. And it was not Marvel's fault that the movie starred an actress no one likes, a character from a D+ show no one watched, and a character from another D+ show no one remembered. I mean, seriously, what a joke of a movie. Any future movie with Nia DaCosta blockbuster attached to it in any way is a film I will gladly pass on seeing, even if you try to give me free tickets. And if you thought things could not get any worse for Disney, think again. In the waning days of 2023, Disney is again staring disaster in the face. The vaunted and legendary Disney Animation Studios were tasked with creating the animated film to celebrate 100 years of Walt and Company. The original idea was to explain the origins of the song When You Wish Upon a Star. Then the social justice warriors and the activists intervened, heavy-handed moralizing and pitting a young black woman, a young black girl, against the evil white man who's keeping her and her family from realizing their dreams may be the final straw for activism in Disney. This $200 million movie failed to capture the top spot on Thanksgiving weekend. It failed, falling behind Hunger Games and Napoleon into third place. It needs to make $500 million, maybe even $600 million to break even, and it's not even going to make $200 million worldwide. And now maybe Disney should have wished for the activists to keep their nose out of this one. Now after 2023, the winds of change will be blowing at Disney. How hard? We just don't know. Can the ship be righted at this moment with Miss Marvel Season 2, the young female Avengers, and a poorly received Pedro Pascal becoming a new Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four? It doesn't look good. And we've not even gotten into Disney Plus overall. And I won't, because I'm a man of my word. I canceled Disney Plus a long time ago, and therefore I didn't see Ahsoka or Mando Season 3 or anything else on that platform. I can only take so much intellectual torture. But gringo, you say? What about the other studios? To that, I say to you, viewer, Warner Brothers DC is a mess. With the leadership change at Warner Brothers bringing in David Zaslav as a new CEO and the exiting of Walter Hamada from the head of DC, which was a positive move because Hamada is responsible for films such as Birds of Prey and Black Adam. I mean, remember those? Yeah, neither do I. But in his wake, in 2023, before James Gunn had a chance to do much about them, Warner Brothers released Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and it flopped hard. The follow-up to this unexpected hit Shazam barely made $130 million. It wasn't a terrible movie, it just didn't find an audience, and it may have been the first example of true superhero fatigue in Hollywood. But overall, it was a good effort. Just the wrong superhero at the wrong time. Now remember that, because it may come up a little bit later. The biggest headache for DC and Warner Brothers was fast approaching after Shazam. Ezra Miller, this lunatic who allegedly chokes women, allegedly invades homes to steal things like liquor, allegedly gives LSD to little girls to groom them, and basically made an ass out of himself on numerous occasions, was set to star in The Flash, a movie that was going to reboot the DC universe. It even had Michael Keaton reprising his role as Batman. This film should have made a ton of money. But even with all that bad press, Warner Brothers went ahead with this movie the way it was. They went through with the extensive reshoots, bad test screenings, delays, hiccups, but in the summer, it's finally ready for audiences. And again, this is a movie that I saw. What we got was a visual headache. The CGI was some of the worst ever put to screen. The story was so convoluted, it gave us the multiverse that they explained using a bowl of spaghetti. It gave us two Ezra Millers because DC thought, well, if one is annoying, then two will be even better. They gave us Michael Keaton as Batman, which was the only reason most of us saw this film. And instead of the Dark Knight of Gotham, he fought aliens in the desert during the day. Fucking stupid. We got babies in microwaves. We got George Clooney for a cameo. And you know what? I think George Clooney is the problem. Maybe George Clooney is just comic book kryptonite. Every comic book movie he's in seems to suck. We got a dozen CGI cameos of other universes' heroes and villains. Not that you could see them very well. Like I said, the CGI was terrible. And Warner Brothers got a historic flop. The worst performing superhero movie ever. That is, until Marvel and Disney released The Marvels a few months later. And then, with the sting of The Flash still pinching Warner Brothers' ass, the next installment of the DCU was ready to be released onto the public. Blue Beetle, a character no one cared about, in a movie that tried desperately to pander to a growing Latin audience. And how did I know this movie was going to fail before it even hit theaters? Easy. I asked all of my Mexican nephews, most of them young teenagers, if they were excited about seeing Blue Beetle. Their response, ¿Qué? ¿Quién es Escarabajo Azul? Or in English, what? Who's Blue Beetle? And with that, the movie was a flop. It was a bad movie full of stereotypes that the studio should be ashamed of, a storyline that the writers should be fired for, and a muddled mess of a superhero throwaway movie that should make James Gunn rethink his decision to leave Marvel behind. Because sometimes the grass is not always greener on the other side. But if you think this was as bad as it could have got, then you haven't heard about background. That's right, there is a completed full-length feature film called Batgirl that you will never see. It's locked away in a Warner Brothers vault because instead of releasing it into theaters, they took one look at it and said, you know what? I think we'll make more money taking it as a tax write-off instead. I mean, maybe it was just a business decision, but for a movie to be shelved after spending $100 million on it and completing it, there had to be something not right. And we'll never know because filmmaking has become so bad in 2023 that choosing not to show a finished product to the public has at times become a better choice financially than actually trying to sell tickets to it. And with that, Warner Brothers is down to the last ditch effort. A movie that does not matter to the future DC universe according to Gunn because that storyline will not be included. Aquaman 2 is a cinematic equivalent of a lame duck in politics. Nobody cares. Sure, the first one made $1 billion, but the first Shazam film made a fuck ton of money too. Sure, it got a great cast and a well-known producer in James Wan. So did Shazam 2, and sure, it got James Gunn behind it. Oh wait, no it doesn't. You already said that this film is meaningless going forward. So, releasing around Christmas time will be Aquaman 2. Does it make money? Does it not? The smart bet is that it does not. The smart bet is that audiences are just tired of seeing the same whole thing. That's why Barbie and Oppenheimer and Super Mario Brothers succeeded. It was something different. That's why Napoleon is outperforming at the box office. That's why The Hunger Games is making its budgets back. That's why even The Nun 2 is profitable. That's why YouTube creators are getting more views than Disney is selling tickets to the theater. The same old thing is just not going to cut it. The MCU golden age is over, and along with it, the coattails that DC was riding high on. So where do we go from here? It will take Hollywood a couple of years to purge itself of the activists that infect their writing rooms and to cast aside the directors and producers with no discernible talent for ones that do. It won't happen next year. 2024 will be as bland, as dull, as unprofitable as 2023. It may take all of 2025 before we get back to making film audiences actually want, but with a presidential election coming up and depending on who wins, Hollywood entertainment may never recover. I'm always hopeful. I'm always looking for a great movie to watch. It's just now for a great movie, I'm gonna have to look at my own library of Blu-rays instead of going to theaters to find something that doesn't leave a bad taste in my mouth or tell me I'm no good because I'm not a transgender POC looking to make money by shaking my ass in the face of a 5-year-old boy. But that's life in the United States right now. And Hollywood is reflecting it, encouraging it, and even urging it on, which is why I am always proud to say I am still your reluctant gringo. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all, but from south of the border, salud and a huevo.